Hello everybody, John Pace here, and today we're going to show you how to expose, white balance, and grade using LUTs for beautiful looking colors with Sony Alpha cameras. This footage was shot with the A7 III and 85mm f1.8 lens, Cine 2 profile with sharpening set at -7. For the settings, you should go to the LUT Pro website and download the setup PDF and also pick up the combo pack while you're there. The LUT Pro is a corrective LUT to give an accurate starting point for Rec. 709 grading. It's not a creative LUT. You can also download the individual LUTs, but it's not really a great deal. You're better off just getting the combo. And I should say that this is an older version of the LUTs as well as the setup PDF. Paul just released a new improved LUT along with different setup instructions. Okay. Now looking at the image again, this is the footage straight out of the camera, and you could see it's a little bit bright. It's washed out and flat. And let's go ahead and open up the scopes. We'll look at the waveform monitor first. And stretch it out to see it better. And what you want to do is to make sure that you expose to the right, which means giving as much exposure as possible to the image without clipping so that you retain as much color information, as much dynamic range and color information as possible. And in order to white balance, I highly recommend custom white balancing using the X-Rite Color Checker Passport video. Let's switch it over to the Vectorscope so we can check the skin tones. Now if we look at the Vectorscope right now, we really can't judge the skin tones. We have to isolate the face alone so we can see where the skin tones actually lie. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the effects browser and we're going to drop a draw mask on the footage. And then using the Bezier, we'll go ahead and draw around the face, avoiding the lips because lipstick will throw the color off. And once we finish doing that, we can look at the Vectorscope and we see that the skin tones do fall on the skin tone line. Maybe a little bit towards the yellow, but it's very, very close. And that's why it's so important to use custom white balance and not to be lazy and use auto or one of the presets like sunny or cloudy. It'll save you a lot of trouble when you go ahead and process your footage. Now the first thing we're going to do after we drop the clips on the timeline is to go ahead and add the LUT Pro. In this case, we shot with Cine 2. And now we have a great starting point for Rec. 709 grading and color correction. But as you can see, the footage is kind of washed out and drab and lacking in contrast. So we're going to go ahead, open up the scopes again, and looking at the waveform monitor, we can see that the shadows are lifted quite a bit because we exposed to the right. And when we pull those shadows down a bit to give more contrast, we're also bearing a lot of the noise that's contained in the shadows. And it's looking much better now, but it's still lacking vibrancy. So we're going to go into the saturation and boost the saturation. And usually I like to add about 36, 37 for the saturation. I like a colorful image. We don't go to the movies or watch videos to see a drab representation of our boring drab lives. We like to see something that has some life. Anyhow, this is already looking much better. Okay, and after we've added the LUT and we've boosted saturation and dragged the shadows down, now it's time we can start to do some grading. But first we're going to look at the one thing that's very important is that you calibrate your monitor. In this case, I've calibrated my iMac with the i1 Display Pro by X-Ray, and I've had a professional technician calibrate my LG OLED television set. Both of them are calibrated to 120 nits, gamma 2.4, and a white point of D65. Now the X-Ray is a little bit expensive, but it's worth it because you'll get years of use out of it. So anyhow, I highly recommend that. And I should mention also that while when you download LUTs from Paul Leeming's website, you'll get free creative LUTs. But I also really like working with Rocket Stock LUTs. They have a package of 35 LUTs that are free, and they're really fun to work with. So I recommend going to their website and downloading the free LUTs, and I'll include a link in the description. So in order to download the LUTs, we're going to have to go into the effects browser again, and we're going to throw a custom LUT onto the footage. We'll drag it on there, drag and drop. And we're going to throw on the Arabica for the first one. I really like this LUT. It's got a really super nice smoky look to it. Of course, I wouldn't use it at 100%, but around 20-30% it looks really nice. What do you think? It's got a warm smoky look to it. I can't decide which strength I like because I like almost all of them. The next we're going to apply is Corbin. This one's a really warm golden color. It looks to me kind of like a golden hour or late in the day. And it's very appealing for the skin tones. And also the hair gives the hair a really nice warm color, a little bit reddish. When you're adding these LUTs, I think it's really important to go ahead and play the clip full screen, because when you look at the monitor in the NLE, when you're playing it back, when it's really small, it can look a little bit more contrasty and darker than it will look when you go ahead and play it full screen. And this is another LUT called Fusion. I think it's got like maybe a sci-fi vibe or something to it. I'm not really sure. I wouldn't personally use it for any project, but it might be good for maybe a music video where you need a highly stylized look. And Lucky is one of my very favorites. It gives a greenish cast. Again, with this and with most of the other LUTs, after I've thrown a LUT on the footage, I'll often go back and isolate the skin tones and color correct the skin, because, for example, with this color, the skin tones also become kind of greenish, and I'd want to go ahead and bring back some of the reds in the skin and the hair. Zeke is another one that's a little bit like smoky looking, and at a little at a stronger strength, it kind of looks like an old-fashioned movie or something. We could see it really reduces the contrast. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you like this one? And the last one we're going to apply is Django. This is another nice one. It does increase the contrast a bit if you use it full strength, so I'd go easy with it. I'd be a little careful. But it's a nice look and very warm. And now we're going to go ahead and throw the Lucky LUT onto the footage, and I'll show you how to go ahead and correct the skin tones when you're using a LUT. Yeah, that looks sumptuous. Okay, let's look at the Vectorscope one more time and have a look at the skin, just to make it clear what I'm talking about when I'm talking about correcting the skin tones after applying a LUT. Okay, so we can see that just as I showed you earlier on in the video, the skin tones are very close to the skin tone line with just the Leaming LUT applied with no color correction. But once we add the LUT, the skin tones become greenish. Yeah, okay. Let's select a strength that looks good. 49 looks good. Yeah. Yeah, you can see that the skin loses its rosiness or its warmth. And if we look at the Vectorscope, we can see indeed that the skin tones are really veering towards green now. So we want to go ahead and add a little bit of warmth to the skin. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the hue, saturation, and luma curves, and using the eyedropper tool, we're going to go ahead and select the skin tones and go ahead and just adjust the skin tones. So we put on a color mask. This is the eyedropper tool, and we're just selecting the skin. And once we've done that, we can go into the hue, saturation, and luma and refine the selection even more. So right now we're doing the luma. And next we'll go into saturation and adjust that so we can refine the selection even a bit more. And the hue we're not going to touch because that won't really affect it at all in this case. We can also look at the black and white when you want to view the mask to see the areas that you selected. Okay, now we're going to throw the draw mask back on the footage, and we're using the draw mask to isolate the skin. We're going to go ahead and using the master wheel of the color wheels to go ahead and move the skin tones closer to the skin tone line. Usually I'd use the shadows, midtones, and highlights individually, but just for speed and just to show you a quick demonstration of how it works, we're just using the master wheel. So we threw in a little bit of magenta or pink, and the Vectorscope is looking a little bit better, but when we look at the image, the skin tones look too magenta or pink. So now we are just going to rely on our eyes, and we're going to look at it and do a little bit of refinement. So I'm going to take out some of that magenta and put it more towards orange. So now it blends in better with the green background and has some contrast with the background. It doesn't fall precisely on the skin tone line, but it's not always absolutely 100% necessary. It's really your creative intent that matters. And if we look at the image full screen, we can see that it's quite pleasing. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you liked what you saw today, please hit the like button. And if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, please consider subscribing. We'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.